Boom, 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 boom. Hello, class. Good morning, Papa Yas. Papa Yas. I've got a short lesson today. I'm extremely tired this morning. I went to bed later than I should have. Gonna wait until we get to 20 viewers. Oh, we're over 20. All right, cool. So, let's get started here. So the topic of today's lesson is playing audio files. That's the topic of today's lesson. So I was following the textbook's method of playing sounds in a program, and it didn't work on my computer. So I think that the textbook might have some stuff that's antiquated in it that's not really used anymore. So I had to look up another method to play audio clips in a program. So let's go ahead and talk about that. So there's a couple of my computer's freezing. So there's a couple of classes that we're going to be using. One is called Audio Input Stream. Okay. And so audio input stream basically just is a general input stream, but with the sort of understanding that the file that you're going to be opening is an audio file. Okay. We're going to be using a class called Audio System. And then we're going to be using a class called Clip. And Clip is an abstract class. Okay. So an abstract class is a class that it has no constructor. So you actually cannot create a clip object. You can only create objects that inherit from the clip class. So basically, in abstract class, you can only inherit its methods. From another class. Okay, so you can't say, for example, new clip. That would give you an error. However, you can define something as a clip if it's something that inherits from the clip class. So it's a little bit weird. We're also going to be using a what's called a try-catch block. So a try-catch block is some code where you have try, and then you have a block of code, and then you catch an exception, E, okay, and then you have some code. So the way that a try-catch block works, you might remember that in a lot of the methods where we were throwing files or we were opening files, we made those methods throw input-output exceptions. This is a method. This is a way that you can handle exceptions without making your method throw an exception. So basically, the way we're going to be using it is we'll try to open a file. Which we know can lead to an error because the file might not exist, okay? So it tries to do this. And if it can't do that, it's going to do this. Okay, so it's almost like an if-then, an if-else statement, but it only goes to the else if there's some sort of issue with what's going on in the try block. Okay, so if you open a file within a try-catch block, you don't have to have your method throw an input-output exception. So it's just a different way of handling that. Okay, so I'm going to share my desktop. Give me 1 second. Okay, so I've got a program here. It's called GUI 5. It extends JPanel again. And so you can see that I'm importing some stuff. All right, so in particular, I'm importing all of those classes that that I mentioned before. So there's the audio input stream, there's the audio system, and there's the clip. So I imported classes related to audio. And then I have some swing stuff. So that's the swing is all the J buttons and J frames and all that stuff. So I imported classes related to GUIs. And the AWT is just sort of a general purpose stuff. And then I did files. Okay, so what I'm trying to do with this program is I'm trying to write a program that makes a window, okay, and then it has 2 buttons in the window, and it plays a different sound depending on which button the user presses, okay? So this should be private button, private J button, and then I actually define two buttons, button 1 and button 2, on the same line. So these are fields of the GUI5 class. Here's the constructor. I call the super, so that would be calling the JPanel constructor. And then now remember, these button 1 and button 2, these are fields, so I have to set their values. So I'm setting their values by creating two new JButton objects. One of them is going to have click me, and the other one is having click me too. And then to both the buttons, I'm adding an action listener, which is going to be a private class called myListener. And then I'm adding those buttons onto the into my JPanel, which is a GUI5 is a JPanel. So basically, let me write down what I'm doing. Assign field, that's a button field, to a new button object. Add a listener to the button so that we know when it's clicked, and then add the button to the JPanel. Now remember, GUI5 extends JPanel, so when I say this dot add a button, technically I'm adding a button to the GUI5 object, but a GUI5 object is a JPanel object, so I'm okay saying that. All right, so we just do that for both of the buttons. Now, you might notice that I didn't specify a layout. So basically that means that that the what's called the flow layout will automatically be used. So flow layout is basically a layout where it just adds things. You add something and it squishes it into the window. So it's kind of the least, you have the least control over the flow layout out of all the possible layouts. Okay, so now I have a private class, myListener, which implements action listener. So the action listener is an interface that has a single method that you have to define, which is called action performed. Okay. So classes implementing action listener must define the action performed method. And so the action performed method accepts an action event E. So basically, when the J button is clicked, it generates an action event, which is picked up by the myListener class, and then automatically the action performed method is run. Now, one of the things about the action event class is it has a method called getSource. Okay, so the getSource method does exactly what you would think it should do. So the getSource is going to returns the object that generated the action event. Okay, so I have two buttons, button 1 and button 2. So I'm going to do a different thing. So I have an if and an else if. So if the source of the event is button 1, then I'm going to do something. If the source is button 2, then I'm going to do something else. Okay? So now here in lines 32 through 37, this is basically the new stuff. So you can see that I have a try catch block. And in the catch, so in the where I catch, I'm not actually doing anything. All right. So I'm not using the catch block. So if opening this file doesn't work, I'm not doing anything. So maybe I'll edit the program a little bit later on in this lesson so that we can see how that works. Okay, so what I do is I first have an audio input stream. Okay. And so I use the get audio input stream method of the audio system class. Okay. So, and then what I'm getting the audio input stream from is a file called sound1.wave. So basically what we're doing here is we're opening sound1.wave as an audio file. Okay, so that's what this is doing. So opening means we're generating an input stream so that the program can get things from the file. And because we're getting an audio input stream, we're saying that this file is, the input type is going to be audio. And then we have a clip. So remember, clip is an abstract class. So if I said clip equals new clip, something like this, I would get an error. Okay, because the clip class cannot be, you cannot create one directly. You can only create things that inherit from it. So there's another method called audiosystem.getClip. So this is basically getting the audio system of the computer ready to play a clip. What's happening here? Then we are going to basically load. So this is an empty clip. So the clip isn't actually holding any audio file. So then what we have to do is we have to load an audio file into the clip. Oops. And then we play the clip. So there's an open method. So we open the audio input stream. And then we start it. Okay. So one of the things, so there's this start method, which is useful. The other method that is useful is, so here's the clip. You can see it has start, but it also has stop. So you can now also call a stop method, which I think would be useful if you wanted to play a portion of a longer piece of audio. So I don't know, you see how that works. You could start and stop audio, which would be pretty cool. But we're not going to do that in this particular program. So yeah, that's basically it. It's these 4 lines of code in a try-catch block. And I don't see a ton of flexibility with how else you could do this. Maybe someone can share out in the Zoom portion of this lesson if they know more about audio than I do. But I would say that the clip dot stop method will also be useful. Okay. So then I have an else if the source of the event is button 2, and I have the exact same thing, the exact same code, only I changed the name of the file. Okay. I'm not sure if this works with MP3s. That's another thing we should try, is see if this will work with MP3s or MP4s and so on. Okay. So then what I do is I just do my standard JFrame, and I add my GUI 5 to my JFrame. So that's been the same for the last several lessons. Okay, so let's compile this. By the way, to open a Finder window. In my programming folder, which has all the programs that I use for this class, you can see I have sound1.wave and sound2.wave. So, so those files are in the right place. I don't have to add extensions to them or anything like that. So I compile it. Then let's run it. There it is. So I have a window called GUI 5, and it has 2 buttons, Click Me and Click Me 2. Again, I just use the flow layout, so it just kind of jams them in however it can. That's how the flow layout works. And so if I click this button, let's see what happens. Okay, so that's sound1.wave is a file that contains a fart sound. Okay, this was actually my first, the first GUI I made back during the summer when I was trying to figure all this stuff out. This is a modification of that program. So let's see, what if I add a second button called Click Me 2? That should play the file sound2.wave. So let's see what sound2.wave is. It's another fart. I have 2 different farts for you today, class. Okay. When I was playing around with this last night, one of the things I noticed is that if you click the button a bunch of times, it actually overlays the sound. So it'll play it multiple times and sort of superpose them. So you can see that there were multiple fart sounds on top of each other. So just keep that in mind. All right, so when I click out, it says program exited with code 0. So one of the things I wanted to try out is to use this catch block. So what if I put a catch block here, then I can do system.out.println. I can print a message to the terminal if the file can't be opened. So maybe I put unable to open sound1.wave. Something like that. Okay? So I compile that. Now let's say I remove sound1.wave from the folder, so I just put it on the desktop. Okay? So now if I wanted to access sound1.wave, I would have to have a file path, which I don't have. So it's not going to be able to open sound1.wave. So let's just see what happens. So you can see if I only removed the file for button 1. So if I click me too, it should work. That still works. But what if I do this one? It doesn't do anything, but you can see here in the terminal it says unable to open sound1.wave. Okay? And every time I click it, it does that. So that's cool. So what if I move sound1.wave back into the folder, but what if I now remove sound2.wave? Okay, so now it's running again. You can see that the first button works, but now the second button doesn't work. Now, why is it that when I click the second button, nothing gets output to the terminal? Okay, it's because there is nothing in this catch block right here. Okay, so so basically there's no the program, we've told the program to just not do anything if it cannot play that audio. All right. So I'm going to move this back in before I forget. One of the things that might be interesting is if you combined this this type of stuff with we talked earlier in an earlier lesson, we talked about pausing the program for a certain amount of time. So it might be interesting to do something where you, for example, play the first 5 seconds of a song and then go to a new song, or that could be useful to you in your internal assessment. All right. So I think that's my lesson for today. So I will see you in the Zoom room. All right. Toodles.